Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a horror concept that taps into one of the most primal fears: hearing your name called when you're completely alone. Imagine this: you're home, lights are low, it's quiet, and then you hear it, a faint whisper just on the edge of your hearing. It's your name. No one's there. You try to shake it off, but it happens again and again. This is the terrifying premise behind the short film idea. When you hear your name, it's not about jump scares. It's about a slow, creeping dread that makes you question your own sanity. The story follows a man named Eli who's experiencing this phenomenon. He's not a ghost hunter or a paranormal investigator. He's just an ordinary guy who's terrified he's losing his mind. So, he decides to do what any of us might do in this digital age. He pulls out his phone to record it, to get proof that what he's hearing is real. This is where the story shifts into the found footage genre, which is the perfect format for this kind of psychological horror. We, the audience, are seeing exactly what Eli sees through his camera lens. The film opens with a shaky, handheld shot of Eli's face. He's visibly stressed, his eyes darting around. He looks right at us and says, "This isn't a ghost story. I just need to prove I'm not going crazy." He explains that for weeks, he's been hearing his name whispered. And right on cue, through the camera's microphone, we hear it too. A faint, distant whisper. "Eli." He freezes. The look on his face is pure terror, mixed with a strange sense of validation. He asks, "You heard that? It's never been that close before." And just like that, we're hooked. We're not just watching his story. We're in it with him. We heard it too. The line between observer and participant is immediately blurred. From there, the tension just ramps up. Eli begins to walk through his small, dimly lit apartment, documenting every moment. The camera becomes his only companion and his only weapon against the encroaching madness. This is where the sound design becomes the main character. The whispers aren't stationary. They move. First, it sounds like it's coming from behind a closed door. He opens it. Nothing. Then, the sound moves, seeming to emanate from under his bed. He drops to the floor, camera first, to check. Again, nothing but dust bunnies. The scariest part is how the whisper evolves. It starts as a distant, airy sound, but it gradually gets closer, clearer, and more defined. It starts to sound less like a random noise and more like a breath right on his neck. The film would play with our expectations. Just as Eli turns the camera to a window to check for a source outside, we see his own reflection. And for a split second, a faint, shadowy figure passes behind him in the glass. It's so quick you'd almost miss it, making you rewind and question what you just saw. This creates an incredible sense of unease. Is it a trick of the light? Or is there something tangible in the room with him? The horror now shifts from being purely auditory to psychological warfare. Eli is trapped in his own home, a space that should be his sanctuary but has become a cage. He tries to fight back in the only way he knows how. He blasts music, trying to drown out the whispers. But it doesn't work. In fact, it gets worse. The entity, or whatever it is, begins to mock him. It starts mimicking him. We hear his own ragged breathing echoed back at him a split second later. When he mutters to himself, the whisper repeats his words, distorted and delayed. This is a classic psychological tactic used by malevolent forces in horror, breaking down the victim's identity by stealing their voice, their breath, their very words. The desperation in his voice is palpable as he finally screams into the silence, "Stop saying my name." I said stop, and then the ultimate violation happens. The whisper interrupts him, its tone changing from a passive call to an active command. Directly into the microphone, clear as day, it says, "Then stop recording." The camera flickers, the screen going black for a moment. A deafening silence follows, which is somehow more terrifying than the noise. And then, one final whisper, right up against the mic, so close it feels like it is in your own ear. "Now, it's your turn." The final scene is what would cement this short film as a classic of the genre. The perspective changes. The camera is no longer in Eli's hands. It's on the floor, lying at an odd angle, pointed towards the corner of the room. The frame is mostly empty, filled with shadows and the mundane details of a lived-in space. Eli is gone, but we're not alone. Standing motionless in the deepest part of the shadow is a faint silhouette, tall and unnaturally still. We can't make out any features, but we know it's not Eli. The film holds on this shot, forcing us to stare into the darkness, our minds filling in the horrifying details. The screen is about to fade to black, but there's one last sound, a single whisper, but this time it doesn't say Eli. The film's audio would be engineered to create a very slight, almost imperceptible pause, and then the whisper would say a name, a very common name, or perhaps even a few different versions could be uploaded, or better yet, just a breathy, unintelligible sound that our brains, primed by the film's premise, would interpret as our own name. The screen cuts to black, and the final text appears. Do you hear it too? It's a brilliant, terrifying ending, because it breaks the fourth wall and turns the horror directly onto the viewer. The film is no longer about Eli. It's about you, sitting alone in your room, suddenly hyper-aware of every tiny sound. It suggests the act of watching, of bearing witness, has made you the next target. This concept is so effective because it uses minimal effects and relies on the power of suggestion, sound, and the viewer's own imagination to create a truly lasting sense of fear. What makes this idea so powerful is how it taps into modern anxieties. We live our lives through cameras, documenting everything. The film asks, what if something is documenting us back? The found footage style makes it feel real, raw, and uncomfortably personal. The lack of a clear monster is also key. The antagonist is a voice, a presence, something that exists just outside the frame, in the shadows of our own homes. It's the fear of the unknown, the fear of our senses betraying us, and the fear of being truly, utterly alone. Or worse, discovering that we're not. This isn't just a monster story. It's a story about isolation and the fragile line between sanity and paranoia. The idea that answering a mysterious call could invite something terrible in is a tale as old as time. But when you hear your name, gives it a chillingly modern twist. It's the kind of horror that stays with you long after the credits roll, making you think twice the next time you hear a strange noise in an empty house. Let me know what you guys think of this concept in the comments below. Have you ever had a similar spooky experience? I'd love to hear your stories. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into all things horror. Stay safe and maybe keep the lights on tonight. See you in the next one.